Money, it shines, it attracts, it promises. From the first moment we see it as children, we are taught that money equals success. Think about it. The movies you watched, the commercials you saw, the magazines on the shelves, they all showed one picture of wealth. A big house with shining windows, a fast car parked in the driveway, a man in a suit, a woman in a dress, both smiling, surrounded by luxury. This picture is everywhere, and slowly, silently, it becomes our truth. We begin to believe that money is not just paper. We believe money is happiness. Money is respect. Money is love. But is that true? Let's pause. Look deeper. Money itself is nothing but paper, numbers, and agreements. It has no power on its own. If tomorrow people stop believing in it, those numbers in the bank, those bills in your pocket, they would mean nothing. So why does money control us? Because money is a symbol. It is not the goal, it is the mirror. For some, money means safety. For others, power. For others still, it means freedom. But here's the dangerous part. If you chase money without asking yourself why, you will never stop running. How many people do you know who are always tired, always working, always busy but never happy? They think, just a little more, just one more raise, one more deal, one more paycheck. But when they reach that point, do they stop? Number. They chase the next one, and the next, and the next. This is the trap, the illusion. Money can give you comfort, but it cannot give you purpose. Money can give you time, but it cannot tell you how to use it. Money can give you people around you, but it cannot make them love you. That's why so many with millions still feel empty. That's why so many with nothing can still laugh, dance, and feel alive. So here's the first lesson. Money is not the dream. Freedom is. But to reach freedom, you must first break the illusion. Ask yourself, do I want money? Or do I want what money represents? Do I want paper? Or do I want choices? Do I want numbers? Or do I want life? Because the truth is simple. If you only chase money, you will lose life. But if you chase life, if you chase freedom, money will follow. This is the beginning of the journey beyond the illusion. We grow up inside a system designed not to make us free, but to keep us controlled. From the first day of school, we are taught the same story. Study hard, get good grades, find a safe job, work until retirement. It sounds simple, it sounds logical, but here's the truth. This path does not lead to freedom, it leads to dependence. Look at how the system is built. You spend 12 years in school, not learning about money, not learning about freedom, but memorizing facts, repeating lessons, sitting in silence, obeying bells and schedules. The school does not teach you how to think, it teaches you how to follow. Then comes university. For many, it means debt. Thousands, sometimes tens of thousands, borrowed before you even earn your first paycheck. You are already in chains before you even begin. And then, the job. The promise is always the same: stability, security, a steady paycheck every month. But what is the price? Your time, your energy, your freedom. 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, for 40 years. This is the formula of the system. And here's the cruel trick. The more you work, the more taxes you pay. The more you earn, the more expenses grow. A bigger paycheck leads to a bigger house, a better car, higher bills. The system is designed so that you never truly escape. Credit cards, mortgages, loans, they look like opportunities, but they are chains. Chains that keep you tied to the system. You are not free. You are owned. Think about it. How many people wake up every morning not because they want to, but because they must? They work jobs they hate to pay bills they don't even remember creating, for things they don't truly need. This is not freedom. This is modern slavery. But most people never question it. They accept it. They believe this is life. This is normal. It is not normal. It is designed to keep the majority working for the benefit of the few. Schools create workers, not thinkers. Jobs create dependence, not freedom. Debt creates control, not opportunity. And if you do not wake up, If you do not question, if you do not break the cycle, the system will use you until your last day. But here's the truth. There is another way, a way that the system does not teach, a way that requires courage, risk, and vision. It is the way of ownership, the way of value creation, the way of freedom. And it begins with a simple decision to stop living by the rules of the system and to start creating your own. Every journey begins with a step, but the first steps are always the hardest. Imagine you grow up inside the system, told all your life what to do, how to act, who to be. And then one day you realize this path does not lead to freedom. You want something more, something bigger. That decision alone, to step off the safe path, already makes you different, already makes you dangerous. So he tried. The first business was small, a simple idea, built on hope more than strategy. He poured in time, energy, even borrowed money. He believed. And then it collapsed. Debt, disappointment, doubt. Friends shook their heads. We told you. It's impossible. Just get a safe job. Family whispered, why take risks? Be normal. But inside, a fire was burning, because failure is not the end. Failure is information. Failure is feedback. The first attempt taught him what not to do. The second attempt taught him how to prepare. The third attempt taught him patience. Every failure carried a lesson that no school could teach. Every mistake was a step closer to understanding how the game of money really works. At night, when the weight of loss pressed down on him, he asked himself, is it worth it? And the answer, whispered in the silence, was always, yes. Because here is the truth. Success is never built on one perfect plan. Success is built on a mountain of failures, stacked one on top of the other, until you finally climb high enough to see the view. But most people never climb. They stumble once, twice, and they give up. They say, it's not for me. It's too hard, he refused. He kept going. Not because he enjoyed failure, but because he understood. Failure is the price of freedom, and every price, every loss, every sleepless night brought him closer. Closer to the moment when failure would transform into growth. Closer to the moment when lessons would transform into value. Closer to the moment when his efforts would finally ignite into success. This is how every real journey begins. Not with victory, but with defeat. Not with strength, but with struggle. Not with applause, but with silence. And in that silence, the foundation of greatness is built. They say knowledge is power, but in truth, knowledge is money. Because money flows to ideas, to vision, to strategy, not to sweat, not to hours, not to muscles. For years, he believed the same lie most people live by. Work harder and you'll get ahead. But reality slapped him in the face. He worked harder than ever and was still broke. And then he noticed something. The people with wealth, with freedom, with control, they didn't work harder. They worked smarter. They had information others didn't. They played a different game. So he became a student again, but not in a classroom. His university was the world. His teachers were mistakes, books, conversations, mentors, and his own failures. He studied how money moves. He studied how businesses grow. He studied psychology, negotiation, investment. He learned to see patterns where others saw only chaos. And one night, after weeks of sleepless study, the truth crystallized in his mind. One good idea is worth more than 10 years of labor. One decision can change the trajectory of a life. One skill can unlock doors that remain closed for the masses forever. He realized that money is not made by following rules. It is made by creating them. Think about it. Every company that changed the world started with an idea. Amazon was once just an idea. Apple was once just an idea. Tesla, Google, Facebook, all ideas born in the minds of people who dared to think differently. And the world rewards those who dare. So he shifted his focus. No longer chasing small wins, no longer trying to just get by. He asked himself bigger questions. How can I solve a problem that matters? How can I create value at scale? How can I think 10 times bigger than everyone else? Because if the poor work for money and the middle class work for comfort, The wealthy work for impact. He stopped measuring progress by hours worked and started measuring it by ideas born. Every notebook filled with concepts, every conversation sparking a new possibility. Some ideas failed, some went nowhere, but one idea, just one, has the power to change everything. And he knew, the more knowledge he gathered, the more powerful his ideas would become. Knowledge is leverage. Knowledge multiplies effort. Knowledge is the bridge between poverty and abundance. And so he dedicated his life to learning. Not for grades, not for approval, not for diplomas, but for freedom. Because in the end, money is just a reflection of the value you bring, the problems you solve, the ideas you dare to pursue. And once he understood this, the game changed forever. Every journey has a breaking point, a moment when persistence meets opportunity, a moment when years of failure, pain, and lessons finally align into one breakthrough. For him, that moment came quietly. No fireworks, no applause. Just an idea, executed with precision. He had tried before. Dozens of projects, each one teaching him something new. But this time was different. This time, he was ready. He saw a problem everyone else ignored. A gap in the market, small but real. Where others saw inconvenience, he saw opportunity. And instead of chasing perfection, he took action. Fast. He built, he launched, he adapted. He didn't wait for approval. He didn't wait for certainty. He moved. At first it was small. A few clients, a few sales, just enough to keep him going. But then momentum began to build. Word spread. The product solved a real need, and people noticed. 1 month turned into two. Two turned into six. Revenue grew. Slowly at first, then faster. And then came the moment. The first time the business made more in a month than he had ever made in a year working a job. It was shocking. Unreal. He stared at the numbers, hardly believing them. All those nights of doubt, all those failures, all those voices telling him to quit. Silenced by one undeniable fact. It worked. But here's the truth. The money wasn't the victory. The victory was proof. Proof that freedom was possible. Proof that he wasn't crazy for believing. Proof that he could create, not just consume. That first win was small compared to what would come later. But psychologically, it was everything. Because success is addictive. Once you taste it, once you realize it's real, you can never go back. It rewired his brain. No longer did he ask, is this possible? Now he asked, how far can I go? This was the pivot, the transformation. From dreamer to doer, from victim of the system to architect of his own future. And the world began to respond. Investors became interested. Partners appeared. Opportunities he could never imagine started to open. But he never forgot the lesson. This was only the beginning. Because one victory can give you confidence. But true wealth, true freedom, comes from multiplying that victory 1,000 times. Still, in that moment, staring at the first real results, he allowed himself to breathe, to smile, to feel the weight of years of struggle lift from his shoulders. For the first time in his life, he wasn't just surviving, he was winning. The first victory gave him confidence. But confidence alone is not enough. What separates the wealthy from the average is this. The rich don't stop at one win. They scale. He understood now that money is a soldier. Every dollar is a worker. You can either spend it and watch it die, or you can send it to the battlefield and let it multiply. So he made a decision. His money would no longer be a consumer. It would be an investor. The first step was simple. Reinvest. Instead of buying luxuries, he poured profits back into the business. More marketing, better systems, stronger teams. What was once a fragile project became a growing machine. Revenue doubled, then tripled. Not because of luck, but because of discipline. He realized the poor spend money on things. The middle class save money in banks. But the wealthy put money to work, so he diversified. Part of the money went into new businesses. Part went into real estate. Part went into stocks, startups, and ideas with massive upside. Each investment was like planting a seed. Some grew slowly, others failed, but a few exploded, creating forests of wealth where once there had been only barren ground. And here's the secret most people never understand. Once you reach this level, money stops being about survival. It becomes a game of multiplication. He no longer thought in hours or salaries. He thought in systems, in assets, in cash flow. Imagine, while most people wake up to go to work, he woke up knowing his money was working harder than he ever could. Every property generating rent, every investment producing dividends, every system operating even while he slept. This was freedom on another level. Not the freedom of one victory, but the freedom of many victories, compounding into something unstoppable. But along with growth came a new challenge: control. Because the more you have, the more complex the game becomes. Greedy partners, hidden risks, sudden downturns. The world is full of traps designed to strip wealth away as quickly as it arrives. And so he learned another lesson. Wealth is not just about creating money. It's about protecting it. It's not just about speed. It's about strategy. He built structures, companies, trusts, protections. He surrounded himself with advisors, but never blindly trusted anyone. He knew the ultimate responsibility was his. And as the empire expanded, as the money multiplied, he finally experienced something he had once only dreamed of: choice. Choice to work or to rest. Choice to create or to disappear. Choice to say yes or no. Not based on fear, but based on vision. This is the stage where money is no longer the master. It becomes the servant. And with every passing year, his wealth worked harder, faster, smarter. He was no longer chasing money. Money was chasing him. Money. Everyone chases it. Everyone wants it. But after the journey, from poverty to wealth, from failure to freedom, from chaos to legacy, one truth remains: money was never the goal. Freedom was. And freedom does not come from luck. It does not come from waiting. It does not come from the system. It comes from a decision to learn, a decision to act, a decision to refuse the chains of mediocrity. Look around. Most people spend their lives working for someone else's dream. They trade their time for scraps. They let fear decide their future. But you are not most people. You have the choice to think bigger. You have the choice to start even if you fail. You have the choice to master knowledge, to build systems, to create value. Money will follow those who move with courage. Money will obey those who treat it as a servant, not a master. Money will multiply for those who dare to invest, to risk, to build. And yet, even as you rise, remember, money alone will not complete you. Luxury will not fill the void. Numbers on a screen will not give you peace. Only freedom will. Freedom to live on your terms, freedom to give without fear, freedom to spend your life creating, not surviving. So stop waiting, stop doubting, stop chasing shadows. The path is before you. The tools are in your hands. The only question is, will you take the first step? Because freedom does not begin with money. Freedom begins with you. This is ASCENDIUM. The journey is never truly finished. Yes, he conquered poverty. Yes, he built wealth. Yes, he created legacy. But the truth about life is this: there is no final destination. There is only growth. Because the moment you stop evolving, you begin to die. The moment you stop creating, the world moves on without you. So even after all the victories, he asked himself, what's next? And the answer was clear: to rise higher, to build greater, to inspire deeper. Because the real purpose of success is not just to escape your own chains, it is to break the chains of others. He realized the wealthiest man is not the one with the biggest fortune. It is the one who gives the most people the power to create their own. And so, the journey continues. A journey of expansion, a journey of creation, a journey of impact. For wealth is not a finish line. It is a tool, a responsibility, a fire meant to be passed from one hand to another. And if you are listening to this now, understand, his story is not just his, it is yours. It is the story of anyone who dares to dream, to fight, to fall, and to rise again. The game of money will test you. It will tempt you. It will break you if you let it. But if you master it, if you rise above it, If you use it to create instead of consume, then you too will step into a life few ever touch. A life not of survival, not of greed, but of endless freedom. Because in the end, the journey of a multimillionaire is not about millions. It is about becoming more than money. And that journey never ends. The game of money is not the same as it was yesterday, and it will not be the same tomorrow. Once, wealth was measured in land. Then it was measured in factories. Then in banks, in companies, in investments. But today, the currency has shifted again. Information, attention, technology, ideas. The future belongs to those who understand that money itself is changing. Crypto, AI, global networks, borderless economies. The old rules are dying. The new rules are being written in real time. And just like before, most people are blind to it. They are trapped in the past, chasing jobs that will disappear, saving in currencies that will collapse, building lives on foundations already crumbling. But a very few, will see what's coming. They will not just adapt, they will lead. He understood this. Wealth is never static. It evolves just like the world. And the ones who stay rich, the ones who stay free, are not those who hold on to the past, but those who build the future. He invested in ideas before they were popular. He backed technologies others laughed at. He built systems not for 5 years ahead, but for 50. Because the real secret is this: money is always moving. Wealth is always shifting. And if you stand still, you lose. The future of wealth will not be in paper or even in gold. It will be in the minds of creators, in the platforms that shape human behavior, in the tools that redefine how we live, work, and connect. And those who understand this will not just be rich, they will control the very architecture of society. This is the next frontier. Not just making millions, not just making billions, but shaping the destiny of humanity through the power of creation. And as he looked forward, he realized his story was not just personal, it was a blueprint, a reminder that the rules will always change, but the principles remain the same. Learn, adapt, create, lead. This is the future of money, and it belongs to those bold enough to claim it. At the highest level, wealth transforms. It stops being about numbers. It stops being about possessions. Because once you can buy anything you want, the question becomes, what can't money buy? And the answer is clear: wisdom, vision, understanding. True wealth is not just a balance sheet. True wealth is knowledge, the ability to see what others cannot, to understand patterns before they appear, to solve problems no one else can touch. He realized money can be stolen, markets can collapse, fortunes can vanish overnight. But knowledge? Knowledge survives. Knowledge multiplies. Knowledge rebuilds. This was the final evolution, not building empires of steel or glass, but building an empire of the mind. Every book he read was another investment. Every lesson learned was another asset. Every failure analyzed was another dividend. He became addicted not to money, but to mastery. Because he saw what few people ever see: money follows knowledge. Always. The sharper your mind, the stronger your fortune. Think about it. The richest investors are not lucky. They understand risk better. The most powerful entrepreneurs are not magicians. They see opportunities hidden in plain sight. The visionaries are not special. They simply dared to learn more than the rest. Knowledge compounds faster than money. Every insight adds to the next. Every skill makes the next one easier. Every idea, every experience, every perspective builds into something greater than wealth: wisdom. And wisdom, unlike wealth, cannot be destroyed. So he dedicated his life not just to earning, not just to building, but to learning. Because in the end, the greatest empire is not outside. It is within. This was the final truth. Money is temporary. Knowledge is eternal. The empire of the mind can outlive any fortune. It can inspire generations, fuel revolutions, and rewrite the future. And as he stood at the height of his journey, looking back on everything, the struggle, the victories, the wealth, the legacy, he smiled. Because the millions were not the real reward. The real reward was the transformation of his mind. That is the ultimate. Wealth that is the true empire. At the peak of success, he discovered a paradox. The higher he climbed, the more he realized how little he truly knew. It was humbling. He had the money, the freedom, the empire. Yet every question answered opened 10 more. Every victory revealed a new challenge. And so he embraced a mindset that few ever reach. He became a student again. Not the student sitting in a classroom, but the eternal learner, hungry, curious, restless. Because he understood, stagnation is death. The moment you stop learning, you start declining. He studied history to understand the rise and fall of empires. He studied psychology to master the hidden forces that drive human behavior. He studied technology to anticipate the world before it arrived. He studied philosophy to question his own existence. Each subject was not just knowledge, it was power, it was clarity, it was survival. The millionaire became the eternal apprentice, and in this humility, he found greatness. Because money can make you arrogant, success can blind you, but curiosity keeps you awake. Curiosity keeps you alive. He saw that the world was shifting faster than ever. Yesterday's wealth strategies were today's ruins. What worked 5 years ago was obsolete now. Adaptation became the ultimate currency, and adaptation only comes from learning. So he read, he traveled, he listened, not to show off, not to impress, but to grow. Because the true measure of a person is not how much they know, but how much they are willing to learn. He realized, a fortune can vanish, but a mind trained to learn can rebuild it again and again. The eternal student is undefeatable. And so instead of declaring, I made it, he whispered something else. I am still learning. That was the secret. That was the mindset that kept his empire alive. Not the millions, not the status, not the legacy, but the humility to stay a student forever. This is the paradox of greatness. The master is always a learner. The rich man is always a student. The end is only the beginning. The eternal student never loses because he never stops growing. And that is the true path, a journey without end. There comes a moment when every successful person faces the same question. What will remain when I am gone? Money? It fades. Companies? They rise and fall. Even empires crumble into dust. But legacy endures. He understood this truth the hard way. He had seen tycoons build fortunes larger than nations, only for their names to vanish within a generation. He had seen monuments destroyed, wealth stolen, dynasties erased, and he realized true wealth is not in what you keep, it is in what you leave behind. So he began to think differently, not about the next deal, but about the next century. Not about profit, but about permanence. He asked himself, what impact will my life have on those I will never meet? What seeds will I plant today that will bear fruit long after I am gone? This was the turning point. He stopped chasing just money. He started building legacy. Legacy is not measured in dollars. It is measured in ideas that inspire, in lives you change, in opportunities you create, in the wisdom you pass on. He invested in education because knowledge outlives currency. He funded innovation because progress outlasts profit. He mentored others because people carry your fire further than you ever could. And slowly his empire shifted. It was no longer about him. It was about the generations to come. Because the rich man buys comfort, the wise man builds legacy. He knew he would die one day, but he also knew that if he lived right, his vision would not. When people spoke his name, they would not talk about his cars, his mansions, his luxuries. They would speak of his ideas, his courage, his impact. That was wealth. That was immortality. And so he chose to live for something bigger than himself. Because at the end, the question is never, how much did you make? The question is, how much did you leave? The poor think in days. The middle class think in years. The rich think in decades. But the wise, the wise think in centuries. And that is the true game of legacy. For most of his life, he believed money was the greatest power. And in many ways it was. Money could buy freedom, security, opportunities. Money could move nations, build empires, change destinies. But as his empire grew, as his wealth multiplied beyond imagination, he discovered something more powerful than money itself: time. Money can be lost and earned again. Reputations can fall and be rebuilt. Even empires can collapse and rise once more. But time, once it is gone, it never returns. Every second spent is a second burned forever. Every day wasted is a piece of life that cannot be reclaimed. And he realized that the true rich are not those who own billions. They are those who own their time. The poor sell their hours for survival. The middle class trade their years for comfort. But the truly wealthy, they buy back their time. Time to think, time to create, time to love, time to live. He began to see clearly. Money is a tool, time is the canvas, and life is the masterpiece painted between them. The tragedy of most lives is not that people lack money. It is that they waste time chasing what does not matter, working jobs they hate, buying things they don't need, living lives that are not their own. But he understood the secret. Money is infinite, time is not. So he began to guard it fiercely. No wasted meetings, no empty distractions, no living for the approval of others. He invested his hours the same way he invested his capital, with precision, with purpose, with vision. Because wealth is not how much you have, it is how much time you control. And the greatest luxury in the world is waking up every day and saying, I choose what to do with my time. That was real freedom. That was real power. And when he looked back, he realized the tragedy of most lives is not that people lack money. It is that they waste time chasing what does not matter, working jobs they hate, buying things they don't need, living lives that are not their own. But he understood the secret. Money is infinite, time is not. So he began to guard it fiercely. No wasted meetings, no empty distractions, no living for the approval of others. He invested his hours the same way he invested his capital, with precision, with purpose, with vision. Because wealth is not how much you have, it is how much time you control. And the greatest luxury in the world is waking up every day and saying, I choose what to do with my time. That was real freedom. That was real power. And when he looked back, he realized something profound. In the end, no one counts the money. They count the moments of love, the moments of creation, the moments of life fully lived. This is the ultimate wealth, the empire of time. Like it, live it, subscribe now.